Welcome to Death Holler, the place of haunted hearts and haunted homes. We welcome you to Death Manor, the home that boasts the most ghosts. Come on in. We've been expecting you. Take a look around. You might see someone that you recognize. Do you hear those voices? That's just the Reverend Dr. Death and La Arena. They're so happy to see you. Sit back and relax. Make yourself at home. Your new home. And remember, when you're in Death Holler, listener discretion is always advised. We hope you enjoy the show. Just kidding, we're live. And that's how you roll.
And if that music didn't give you a hint, we're going to be doing a spoiler cast for the Munsters, the Rob Zombie Munsters that recently came out for Netflix. Why not on Peacock? Nobody knows. Maybe the quality. We'll discuss that, but so anyways, do you all have anything to say about it before I get into the details about it, and then we can just kind of discuss it?
Do we want to get into that already so quick?
I can just cover the basics, like who's in it, like we regularly do, and then the synopsis, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, let's start with that, because this is such a new, what's the matter?
I'm hearing noise. I didn't know what it was.
Oh, okay. Sorry, everyone. We're professional here. Yeah, I hear that noise too.
Yeah, you got to turn the other mics off. You turned every single mic on.
There it goes. Better. Professional. Yeah, let's roll into the basic info about it before we start giving opinions. And I'm sure as you talk about it, I'm sure we'll throw our 2 cents into it.
Yeah, it's going to be hard not to. It's very polarizing amongst the general audience. So it's Munsters, the Netflix, actually made for Netflix movie. Directed by Rob Zombie, written by Rob Zombie, based on characters by Norm Liebman and Ed Haas. Music by Zeus, whoever that is. You would figure that has some music by Rob Zombie, but I don't know.
I mean, the intro was by Los Straitjackets. I am so surprised he didn't do his own version of the song.
I guess he didn't want to put his spin on it with his music or something, because he, he's supposed to be like a Uber fan of the Munsters, like the original show. So he was, I don't, this is like his loving tribute. So I guess he wanted somebody else to come in with the music so that he wouldn't, I guess, tilted in any certain way that way, because he's, visually and all that was his baby. So. Okay.
I get that. I'm just saying you can add to it. Okay, guys, I can be this other version of myself, or I can appreciate this film and make a version of it very similar. Also, here's my version of this song. This is how I would do it as Rob Zombie. I'm just saying it would have been awesome. I'm fangirling a little about it, okay?
Principal players, of course, Sherry Moon Zombie.
What?
Yeah, who would have thought?
Never heard of her.
Playing Lily, and I didn't know this until I looked it up, Donna Doomley, whoever that is. I don't even remember her in the show, or in the movie.
Okay, I'm looking that
up. Jeff Daniel Phillips is playing Herman. Daniel Roebuck is playing the Count, and he's playing Ezra Mosher. I don't know who Ezra is. I mostly know him as the Count in this movie. Thomas Boykin is playing Lester, which is Lily's brother, who's a werewolf. I never could figure out how that worked out. That a vampire gave, birth to a werewolf, but I guess the Count liked to get freaky with some other monsters.
Yeah.
Richard Brake is playing Dr. Wolfgang and Orlok, the Nosferatu vampire that you see at the beginning of the movie. We have Jorge Garcia, most commonly known from his role in Lost, playing Floop, which is kind of a weird Igor type character, which is funny because we have Sylvester McCoy, one of the people who played Doctor Who, playing Igor, which is the Count's version of Igor. I don't know. It's kind of weird that they've got these conflicting roles. Cassandra Peterson, otherwise known as Elvira, playing Barbara Carr toward the end of the movie. And then we have Catherine Schell playing Zoya Krupp, who is kind of the foil for the Count and the one who's trying to get revenge. Turns out she's one of his exes from the past that he kind of did dirty.
Because he liked to get freaky with many characters.
Yeah, he's lived for like 300 years. I mean, he had plenty of time to spread that love around. We have, I did a quick synopsis for this because everybody kind of knows the gist of it. It tells the origin story of how Lily and Herman Munster met and why they left Transylvania to live in a perfectly awful house in the California suburbs. Bad jokes are made, YouTuber lights are used in every fucking scene of the movie, and deep cut references are made for Munster fans. I get right into it. I did not like the colors used in this film throughout the entire film. It would have been fine. I thought they were good. I thought they were enjoyable in that scene with Count Orlok at the beginning, whenever he had, like, if the crypt is a rockin', don't come a knockin', they...
You like the disco vampire?
What's that?
I said you like the disco vampire.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was an interesting beginning, but then like every scene after was just like neon pink, neon purple, neon green. It's like, come on, like seriously.
See, he wanted to stay true. He wanted to make it his baby, but he still added his own touch to it, and the neons was definitely his touch.
Well, from what I understand, and this might be I can't remember if I put this in the trivia notes or if that's just something I heard, but he wanted to do it in black and white. Somebody told him he couldn't. I don't know who told him and why, because, it would have been a lot better, I think, in black and white. And when he was told that he couldn't do that, he was like, well, he got to looking at the characters, and he had, like, the bright green of Herman and some of the other colors that he had introduced in, like, throughout the movie. He was like, well, why don't I just make it like a cartoon and just bathe everything in like this, colorful light. So that's why he went that route.
Do what you got to do. I did not like the colors. I did like the beginning with the Count when he came out of his tomb, or not tomb, but his coffin. And it kind of gave a Rob Zombie film look for a minute as he was looking into the lights. I don't know, just had like a little bit of a creep effect. Obviously not to the max because of the type of movie this is. That was the only time I remember thinking, okay, that's not too terrible.
What did you think about the color choices in this, Noah?
I didn't like them I've watched it twice, kind of. The first time around, I hated it, and the second time around, I actually liked it.
The only thing I'll give him on that is it's distinctive. It makes it stand out.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I feel like by the time you get halfway through the movie, it's kind of, it's like one of those things where it blends in, into the background in a bad way. It's like it doesn't really stand out anymore. It kind of loses its, pop or whatever, because your mind has to do something with, all that, color. And it's just like, okay, I'm ignoring all of this, and it just kind of drowns it out.
I agree with you, because I was wondering at certain points watching the film, like, did they lessen the amount of pop that they had in it?
No.
Did something change, or did I just kind of digest it a little bit? And it's like, okay.
I would say the pop actually becomes more prevalent when they go to LA, because then you're in regular reality, and they're so contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually that part of the movie they actually lose the lighting and they rely more on the monsters themselves to be the ones that are standing out. Because I don't remember. I mean, it's more like natural lighting whenever or at least sunny lighting is what they go for, and whenever they go to go to California. So
yeah, we've all seen the original Munsters on TV, right?
Scenes, yeah,
yes. Okay.
Or, bits and pieces, yeah.
I actually used to watch the show. I mean, come on, TV Land, man, that thing was amazing, to have as a kid. I don't know, I was just into the older stuff, and I think it was just something my parents put on. Whatever, that was my childhood. But anyways, I don't know if you guys have enough knowledge to compare the type of acting we've got from the original versus what we got from these characters in this movie.
I feel like I have enough.
Hold on. Before we go down that, what was your favorite character in the movie?
In the movie, it was for me it was the Count, Grandpa Munster.
What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Grandpa.
I thought the Count was hands down the best. They did a good job nailing the Count. I think that they executed that. To me, like just remembering the old one and then watching this one, I think the Grandpa, that character carried over hella good.
Looked good, sounded good,
played the part good.
Yeah, he nailed it.
What you expect from an upset like dad, like, oh, look at this moron.
Yeah. Well, and it's because the actor Dan Roebuck, I mean, is probably more of a fan of the show than maybe even Rob Zombie, and like he really studied up on the part of Grandpa, or the Count before he even attempted to do the role, and he tried to match the mannerisms and all that.
Yeah, he did a great job.
The thing that threw me off the most though was Herman's performance, because I didn't like the squeaky I'm going through puberty voice.
Yes.
That's the one thing, if we're going to compare it to the old cast, Fred Gwynn, you're not going to replace, first of all, but secondly, that I always remember him as a child being because it matched his look. He had, he had that big barrel chest, but he had that big thundering, deep voice or whatever. And it was but he wasn't he wasn't mean with it. He would make stupid jokes and do the laugh and slam stuff this Herman did. But he would also he would deliver these lines to, Eddie all the time. It's these very heartfelt, this is the reason that we love each other, those type, could be schmaltzy, feeling type things, but he delivered them in a way that felt good.
Yeah.
Well, his character was a character that didn't realize his own strength is what it was.
Yes.
So, but the new character wasn't that. He wasn't a character that was over the top strong that didn't realize it.
I think that's what I liked, is that he was this big brooding guy. He was a dweeb, but he could definitely scare the shit out of somebody just with his voice and his height and his look alone. Whereas in the movie,
the voice was so bad.
Looks, acts, and sounds like a dweeb.
It was so hard. Yeah, it's just he's supposed to be a nerd that doesn't realize he's like a damn silverback gorilla, in strength. That was supposed to be what the character was supposed to be. And
it's funny in the movie too, because he's cocky, because he's got this cred for being for whatever reason he's popular for his bad jokes, so he's kind of got this cockiness to him, so he doesn't have the humble feeling that you got from the original Herman.
Well, he's a rock star.
Yeah.
Which was so, I don't know what was going on there.
I wasn't digging that. I just wasn't.
You wasn't getting what about it?
Oh, no, I wasn't digging that. I didn't like the whole,
okay, gotcha.
I'm a rock star and I'm going to be a big Hollywood star.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of being a comic would have been a better angle. Just an idiot with just horrible jokes and then building the character for that. Instead, they made him this weird rock star that doesn't translate onto the character at all.
Okay, so they had a part in the film where they took Zombo, which was an actual episode from the show. Mm-hmm. It was a character from an episode which was played pretty much by Herman Munster, which in this movie, it also was played by Jeff. What's his name?
Daniel Phillips.
Jeff Daniel Phillips. I keep thinking Jeff Daniels. Not the same person at all.
No.
But anyways, so in the show, it was almost like, yes, he loved this character, and same in the movie, but it would have been better if they had played him the same kind of dweeby guy that didn't know his strength, as you guys have mentioned, in the film, and then they see Zombo, and then he thinks he can be a rock star because he can be like Zombo, but he's just cocky like, oh, well, that guy looks good, but if they think he looks good, imagine when they see me. It's like, not liking it. I'm not feeling that.
You know where the storyline falls apart rapidly is the fact that he was human. So the brain he has in his head is from a regular human, not a monster. And they got killed. And he's so nonchalant with all the monsters. Like, I understand the vampires taking that position because they're old and that's all they've been around. But if you really think about his character, it's a human brain. He was a human that got killed by a monster. Why is he so nonchalant about being around so many dangerous things?
Well, I mean, that's a good point, but I want to discuss the fact of, how they came across the brain, because how convoluted is the setup for that? You have a news, piece, which I did like that. They had all the news articles, or everything on TV and stuff looked like it was from the 70s or whatever from, a previous time period. But anyways, it's like they're watching that and it's like, today this horrible comedian Shecky whatever died, and then also his brilliant twin brother happened to die on the same day, and they happened to be put in the same funeral home at the same exact time. I'm like, come on,
yeah,
really?
Official smarty pants.
Yeah, that was so funny. Oh my God. Which, by the way, that news reporter, as you mentioned, was Sherry Moon Zombie, and I did not know that was her.
Okay, that was probably Donna Doomley.
That was Donna Doomley, the news reporter, and they did a good job of making her not look like Sherry Moon Zombie.
Well, let's just give credit where credit's due, or at least I'm going to. Sherry Moon, like, for all the jokes everybody put out about this beforehand, didn't do a terrible version of Lily. Like, it's not the greatest, but it's not bad.
I agree. It's not bad.
Sherry Moon Zombie. Oh my God. Talking about the original Lily Munster, she had a little bit more sex appeal in the show, and she wasn't as light and fluffy. She wasn't dark by any means. She had a personality similar to what we get in the movie. She was just a little bit more toned down in the show.
Well, I don't remember her being that stupid in the show. I remember her being a smart one.
Yes.
She followed after her dad. And
she was sassier too.
Yeah.
She was the stereotype. For the time, for the
whole Homer
I don't know.
Simpson
Maybe
thing.
it wasn't stereotypical, but anyways, she was the smart wife that had to kind of was long suffering for some of the stupidity that Herman came up with, but she loved him enough to where it didn't really matter. It was one of those type things.
Just like I love you, babe.
Really? Yeah, it was that Homer Simpson type parody thing.
Yes.
Right. And the one thing I was going to say about the one thing I'll give Jeff Daniel Phillips' interpretation, or at least Rob Zombie's interpretation of Herman versus the TV show that matched, although it's very light, is the fact that Herman in the TV show, Fred Gwynn's version, always referred to himself, he always thought he was handsome, even though everybody else thought that he was this hideous monster. He was always like, well, I'm very good looking, and like they play into that a little with this, this version where he's cocky in the sense that he knows or thinks he's this good looking monster or whatever. So they did tie that in, but as far as the rock star stuff, that didn't fit at all.
The ego is a little too much, though. That's what.
Yeah.
It's one thing when you're subtle about it, but when you're over the top like that, it kind of loses its. Like, you're not hitting the mark.
Yeah.
How do we feel about the fact that they really didn't focus on 1313 Mockingbird Lane very much? That was at the last 20 minutes of the film. They focused on more of what led them going there.
And to me, it was the best part of the entire movie. Was whenever they actually went there.
Yeah, there was a lot of useless buildup. Like, Herman sold the mansion and everybody was cool with it.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
she,
they
like he just
suddenly were
inherits
fine
it.
with it, and on top of that, I mean, Lester, well, I mean that's kind of a stereotypical thing from like sitcoms, but suddenly the money he did get out of the whole thing, he changed over in Vegas, and now they're rich again. It's like, okay,
It was just like a fast fix. It was like, okay, how do we end this movie? Oh, this is how we're gonna end the movie, and here it is.
I just the thing that I've heard complaints about, and I do have to agree, is that I don't know why they had to include the scenes where when they're on vacation, when they're on their, but whenever he proposes and all that, why they had to go into the sewer so that they can meet that's how they met the creature that ends up being their pet or whatever. It's like, I mean,
Out of all the ways to do that, you could have made that animal inside the castle and they just take it with them.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was just so extraneous, like that whole added scene.
Because they could have really put some good bows on the storyline. Like the way that they lost the castle, there would have been a better way of tying that together where it was a grandpa's fault. So Herman didn't take the ownership. Because I think that kind of like destroyed the story, having him be like such an idiot that he did it. They could have made like the grandpa made a bad decision investing or something like that. There's all these different ways they could have spun it that would have worked out.
Lost it to the ex-wife, something.
Yeah.
I agree with you that I think that it should have been on the count to have lost it, because I don't remember. They end it that way, but like Grandpa never really seemed like he was, butthurt toward Herman because of that. He, thought he was a goofball and an idiot, but like he never like blamed him for anything. And like he has a major reason to like hate his son-in-law now.
Forever.
Yeah.
Whereas if he was forced to move in with the two of them, he would be more grateful, and therefore he would be more like the character that was in the original show.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking. It throws off the whole dynamic of how that interacting relationship would work. And not that too, but they could have set it up for a second movie, or it cuts off when they move to LA, and it doesn't kind of fill it in, and then then the next movie starts, and you could see them kind of having the kids and starting to get. And there would have been a better way to tie the bow or leave the bow untied to be filled in later. And
do you think that was even a possibility? Like the way things went with how this movie was like, okay, it's going to be a film, and then it's going to be straight to DVD. And it's like, oh, just kidding. We're going to be on Netflix now. Do you think that was even a thought in Mr. Zombie's head?
But this is a perfect movie to go straight to Netflix. This would have been a way better movie. Because if they would have cranked down the budget, it would have forced them to get better with the story structure.
Yeah, they didn't have a good budget as far as we know, right? Do we
well,
have
they had
good
enough
numbers?
to waste a big section of the story on some bullshit Paris thing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it was enough of a budget to give him the slack he needed to kind of fuck off with the story. Whereas if he would, had to work harder with it, he would have tightened things up. Yeah, I agree with that. Also, I mean, I'm still of the mind that if Universal, who was the one that allowed them the option to have this IP, felt more confident in this movie, they would have put this on Peacock. I mean, why would they give Netflix the option to stream something that could have helped their own streaming platform?
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Oh dear God. Yeah, I keep forgetting about that.
Yeah, it's weird that like, I don't know who sits in these writer rooms when they're structuring these things. But
Mr.
it's
Zombie.
Like, I know, but there's other fuckheads that are in there contributing to the story structure. And how come no one's seeing these giant, like, we understand we're entertaining the idea of fantasy, but let's tighten it up a little bit.
I mean, I did not hate the opening where, Lily goes on the date with Count Orlok or whatever. I thought that was an interesting twist to show that she was just, I mean, that worked because it was showing that she was, she was bored with the people that her dad was always setting her up with. So she was looking for somebody different. And I actually enjoyed those scenes with Richard Brake as, in his other character as Dr. Wolfgang, because I thought that character, I mean, the way he played him, I just liked how he just like fucking hated everybody that was around. He hated Floop, he hated Herman, and he let him know that he hated him too. And I loved that.
I like the whole way they structured it where she saw him on TV being unveiled. I think that, like,
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to me, so far, it was working. Like, okay, we were setting up the foundation. I think instead of spending the time going to Paris, they should have spent time him acclimating to being a monster.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
tie in a story where she pursues him.
Because she fell in love with him for being a monster. She didn't fall in love with him for being this fucking...
But they could have did things where, like, he was getting like, they could have structured it where he was getting attacked, but now he's like this over-the-top super strong guy that it doesn't really harm him. And to him, they could have played it like, oh, this isn't as threatening anymore as I thought it would be. And it would give you the leverage to lead into his character being comfortable in these situations. Like, he's hanging out with 2 vampires. Like, what the fuck?
What do you think? This just spitballing. What do you think if they would have went the route? Because it was almost like Rob was playing on, like, you know, his actual relationship with his wife or whatever a little bit, you know, in between Herman and Lily, the fact that she was kind of, you know, love struck with this you know, rock star, as it were.
A rock star monster.
Yeah. So what if she had became, like, you know, to piss off the Count, had like left and went on the road with Herman, like, you know, on his tours or whatever, and was kind of like, you know, went that route with it. I mean, it could have been cheesy, but at the same time, I feel like that would have been more authentic than just having the 2 of them go off to Paris.
And see, that would have worked too, because you could have did that, and then you could have justified why he has the money, where he really doesn't have to get a job. And then, and at the same time, you could have built a back end story where her dad's making bad mistakes, and then loses the castle while they're on the road.
There you go, yeah. And then you know, Herman uses or parlays the money that he, you know, earned as the rock star
To buy a house.
to buy a house and settle down.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things you could have did structure wise that would have made it more tangible.
Or, and this is just another idea, you could leave the fucking franchise alone and quit fucking with things that are good.
But you gotta remember, this is the backstory that tells the story of who they are and where they came from.
Yeah.
I know, but that never happened in the show.
But it could have been better.
I think that instead of the rock star angle, and I don't know why Rob didn't do this, because clearly he's got a fascination with this because he made a song out of it. Why he didn't have Herman be a race car driver and drive Dragula around?
Oh!
I mean, for the love of God!
Because it's his baby and it's too cliche, as we previously discussed.
Well, yeah, you could have made it, instead of him being a comedian, him being some kind of racer, and his brother being the smart guy. There's all these different ways that you could have structured it where it kind of, you could have played these things in a little bit better.
Because, I mean, that ties directly in the show. That's the episodes of the show that I remember the most, are the episodes where Herman got Dragula out and, like, you know, went on the races.
Yeah, out of all the things you could have did, I felt like it was just, it came off really, really sloppy.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know it's supposed to be like a slapstick comedy here, but it's like they slapped it all together.
I know, but what makes a good movie at the end of the day? A more tangible story arc.
A storyline with characters that fucking can carry it.
But they could have carried
that you care about.
But that's the thing, though. If you were to restructure the story, the characters would have worked way better without changing their acting at all.
I would have. I am surprised about the acting still, because again, I watched the Munsters a lot, and I know it was when I was a child, but you don't forget things like that stick in your head. And I'm telling you, like, these characters, they were just a version of themselves. They weren't really the characters. If this was really his baby, why did he kind of stray from that?
I don't know. The grandpa nailed it.
Grandpa nailed it.
Lily did a good job of nailing her.
No, she didn't.
I think Sharon Moon did she wasn't as upfront and ballsy as the original one, but she did a really good job, especially near the end when she was getting assertive.
Here's what I'm going to give Sherry Moon Zombie as far as her part. And you got to remember this. She's supposed to be playing a younger version of Lily, one that hasn't grown up and become a mother. Motherhood will change Lily into more of the character that she was in the show.
Yeah.
There you go.
Fucking kids.
Sequel, I'm telling you. Sequel would have worked. Instead of ending it the way they did, they could have left it open-ended and then filled in and tied up a bow later.
They still can go with it. They've got money. It doesn't mean they don't want to leave the
I
fucking
just
home that they have.
don't get the whole werewolf son thing. Like I was just like, this is fucking horrible.
You know what bothered me about the werewolf son thing, in particular in relation to this. Lester might have been a thing in the show. I don't remember that. But here's the weird thing: if your brother is a werewolf and then your kid ends up being a werewolf, you might not be the dad, Herman. You might not be the dad.
There's some incest going on.
Incest thing, and it's weird.
Well, I mean, wait, no, Lester was Lily's brother.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's even
creates
sicker when you think.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So
okay.
now that you know their story, now if you go back and watch the originals, it's like, oh, she was banging her brother.
This is, oh God.
But I mean, to give credit, because I said that motherhood would change, Lily. Fatherhood could change Herman, but not enough, because I don't see going from this version of Herman to the wise version of Herman that we had in the show that was giving all that advice to his son. You don't go from one to the other.
He was still an idiot in the show. The grandpa was the one that was the fixer for the most part. The grandpa went around making things happen in the background and smoothing out a lot of the ripples.
Yeah, but I just remember like Herman always giving like these, pearls of wisdom, like even if he was an idiot, to his son. And like, I don't see this version having any pearls of wisdom to give anybody.
Yes,
like, I
maybe he needs
agree.
to age another 150 years or so. I mean, it is true that I think all of us could honestly say that we are not the people we were 20 years ago.
You know what the big question is? Okay, knowing that they're monsters and everything, how did they get a normal daughter?
No, that's a cousin.
That's a cousin that shows up, but I don't know how she's a cousin. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Twice removed.
Is she like a relative of the Count? Like, but like a part of his family that was not vampires, that like just kept, like they moved to the new world and they, and generation after generation, and she just happens to be related that way to him. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of kids. We've established that, so it could be possible,
He had, what is a half vampire, half human?
Blade.
I thought there's an official name.
I almost feel like we could say
there is. It's like Dampier or something. It starts with a D, but like DHAMPIR.
A daywalker.
I almost feel like we could spitball a better story, just between the three of us of the arc of it, because they've got enough of the core pieces where you could put legitimate good story structure into it now.
And I think that's why it is so polarizing, because I think a lot of people see the same thing we're talking about. It's like they see that there was a potential there for a lot better movie than what we got, and it doesn't make sense. Nobody was pressuring, to my knowledge, Rob to get this out by a certain time. Why didn't he spend a little bit more time on the writing side of it to because he loves this show. So why, I don't see how you love a show like that. And then, this is, fan fiction can be better than this, even if that's what you want to call it. Like it's his version of fan fiction. I mean, I just don't understand how you come up with this as the result.
This reminds me of our recently reviewed Hocus Pocus, because really what happened is, if you don't know what Hocus Pocus is, if you don't know what the Munsters are, you really are living under a rock. You at least have some reference of it. You can't escape it. So what happened was, he took this amazing thing that everybody knows what it is, especially if you love Halloween or anything spook related, and he was like, well, this is going to be a hit no matter how we spin this.
Wrong.
And
wrong.
That's what happened. And I think that's the mistake a lot of people are making, is they're taking a franchise of sorts and they're saying, hey, let's, we're going to make the storyline no matter what we do, it's going to sell, and people are going to watch it, but they're
going to criticize the shit out of it. The only hit that happened with this movie is it hitting the ground.
Ooh. I did like the puppy. The puppy was adorable.
Oh my God.
We got to mention the fact that Elvira's in this movie, but there's really no reason for Elvira to be in this movie. Like, she kind of sucks.
Not,
Yes.
you know what I was dying for, and I know you guys were too. Did any of you think that for 1 minute she was like, "Don't be surprised about how I'm gonna look"? And
She would be in her costume.
Elvira costume. Oh, I would have died.
You know what? Out of all the ways you could have put her in the movie, you could have made her an aunt that was in L.A., and that's where the cousin comes from.
There you go. That would have
Yeah.
worked, and again, then she could have that vampiric look that she always had back in the past, anyway.
Or if Elvira was a witch, maybe this girl's a half witch and she doesn't even know it.
And not only that, but it would have given him a tangible reason to go to L.A.
Yeah.
Oh, Dad lost the house. We got to figure something out.
Aunt Elvira's out there.
Yeah, like of all the way you could have structured it, and then at the same time you're bringing the cousin into the equation without even trying.
Yeah, or at least building up if they try to do another film. You're building up to the fact that, hey, cousin, what the fuck is her face going to be there? So
I just feel like there's an immense amount of missed opportunities to make something good.
there was, again, they kind of slapped this together and was like, this is going to work.
But that doesn't, like he was saying, he wasn't under a time constraint for the most part from what the story is.
Yeah. I mean,
Here's the one thing I'm going to give Rob for this. A lot of the remakes that's been happening recently of like older properties have been adding in a bunch of like, woke nonsense for no reason. He did not do that with this movie, and I got to give him props for it.
Definitely.
There's none of that in this.
I think a lot of the whimsical thing about Herman and the colors are kind of a lead in with not too over the top, very subtle, but like because Herman's character is like, he's not manly. Let's be honest. You're going to tell me?
He is by default.
No, the dad's manly.
Yes, that's how the dad's attitude is. But Herman Munster, even in the show, he's only manly by default because he's big and brooding.
Yeah, he's kind of a gentle giant in the show. It's one of
Yeah,
those
but
things that they kind of
But
play
being
off.
manly isn't just being strong. It's also being a figure that people look up to a degree, like his son.
Can be.
Like the moments he has with the son, that's a form of being manly. It doesn't have to be physical strength.
That's true. But I mean, to his credit, it's still not like what Kevin Smith did with the Masters of the Universe, where he basically took He-Man from his own show, killed him not once but twice, so that he could make a more manly Teela into the main character.
Yeah, I'm glad I never watched that. I have good memories of He-Man. I want to keep it that way.
But
do you now?
and this is after Kevin Smith swore up and down that he respected and loved, the IP as it was.
It was ruined. I want to talk about something real quick, something that I appreciated in the film. And I don't know that you guys agree or not, but I do think that the makeup effects were actually really good. Makeup and costumes were pretty decent.
I feel like they were pretty good. Yeah, I can't complain.
Really
about
good.
that.
Like, I mean, as clear as the film was, a lot of close-ups that they did.
I would
and
say they're
the
okay.
tangential characters too, like Zombo. Like, some of those even look good.
You know what it would have been an awesome spin on the movie if they made it less like cartoonish in nature and made it more like a horror movie. I'm curious how that would have played out.
That would have been cool, actually.
That would have been cool, but I get if Rob was trying to go for because the original show was more oriented toward families, and I think that's the one thing he was wanting to try to keep it at, because the joke was before this came out that it was going to be a typical Rob Zombie movie, and like people came up with the memes all the time where it showed like basically redneck versions of all the characters, and they were all sitting there like "fuck you, no fuck you," and it's like because that's basically his movies otherwise. So
I think that would have been an interesting take on it to make it a serious horror movie.
I mean, we would like that, but he really wanted to stick true to "this is my baby."
Because you could have made the Lily and her dad this killing people rampantly as vampire. I mean, there was so much
fucking heads on stakes outside in the front yard. Oh my god, I bonked my mic.
But you can almost do it as a dark comedy though too. Prime example that this movie worked hella good. I don't know if you have the same opinion.
Dark Shadows.
I
knew he was gonna go that route.
That was hell.
Yeah.
Think about that. Like how that was a dark comedy. The original show was serious, but then this one was a dark comedy, and it worked good.
Death Holler will be reviewing that during vampire season. Stay tuned.
It's one of those things though where you're when that I feel like is taking the tone of the Munsters and more making it into like the Addams family, because they were the darker family of the time that did, stuff like that in a roundabout way.
Yeah, but they never technically killed anybody.
In the new ones they did, I think. I think it's hinted very heavily that they killed people. Like,
I know, but the monsters have all the structures for them to actually be monsters.
yeah, but that was supposed to be the whole gist of the, the joke or whatever, is that they looked like these horrible monsters, but they were your typical suburban family when you got right down to it. That
were they though? The grandpa's in the basement making experiments in poison gases.
Really? That's not something that has happened in a suburban neighborhood in the exact house that we live in.
I mean, you got grandpa in the basement making certain concoctions that may not blow up the entire house.
My husband has done that.
Yeah, but the difference is I don't live off of blood.
Yet.
Really?
You don't.
I wasn't talking about blood. I was talking about maybe meth. But that's, the difference between two areas here.
Dear Lord. Yes, going back, you said that, Noah, you said the makeup was just okay.
To me, it wasn't amazing.
I thought it was.
Considering what it could have been.
Okay, hold on.
It was pretty decent.
When you say makeup, makeup includes a lot of factors. It's not just makeup. It's also special effects.
And it's prosthetics and everything.
Correct.
Yes.
So when he pulled that puppy from that basement.
They're so cute.
Okay, how do you know?
Because I saw it in the bathtub, and I thought it was adorable. It had a cute little face. Looked like Vader if Vader was deformed.
We got some questionable about the prosthetics.
I'm talking about
the effects whenever they would like do the transitions, like or different things like that, like if one of them was getting knocked out or hypnotized, like they had the cartoony like effects playing in the background. Did you love that or did you hate that? Like, what'd you feel about that sort of stuff?
It is a drawback.
That's not me.
I know. I was like, what the hell is that? It is a playback to the show. They did do stuff like that. I don't think it was done very well in the movie.
I get what they were going for,
yes.
But I felt like it was cheesy.
Yeah.
That's part of makeup.
It is. Okay, I'm talking about actual makeup, like makeup that you can put on people.
I know,
but she's talking about if she wants to break it down, the prosthetics that they're using, basically.
But anytime you're making any type of effect, whether it be makeup or special effects, it's all in the same genre. It needs to be executed consistently and not half-assing it on certain points.
Yeah, that is true.
Because it stands out.
I mean, I just think
you can't phone that shit in, and it needs to be like dialed in.
It could have looked worse, is what I'm getting at. So, and they didn't, and I don't know. I really did feel that the CGI was unnecessary in the film. That we're talking about something that technically this was a 50s type show.
Even though the televisions looked like they were from the 60s or 70s, yeah.
I mean,
there were so many inconsistencies with components in it that don't match a time error. Like, they don't transplant. Like, you have stuff that looks like it's newer, and then you have stuff that looks like it's older, and they're overlapping.
Yeah.
It doesn't make... There's, like...
They were very heavily hitting the 60s, like, go-go type stuff, because I think that's a whole... Rob and Sherry... Rob has made Sherry, like, dress like that several times in his video, so he's
this is where there's a problem
that,
immediately. When did disco happen?
The 70s.
Mid-70s.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to tell me Transylvania backwoods is up par with current stuff happening in America? Because that's where disco started. Do you understand where we automatically run into a major inconsistency?
Yeah, well.
Yeah, they could have saved that for when they were in. Really, realistically, they could have saved all that for when they were in California, but they spent such little time in California on the show. And I know this is, the whole the beginnings and everything. We're spending way too much time.
That would have been a whole other reason why they should have went with the thing of Lily joining him on tour or something like that. Because if they would have done that, then they could have went to another country, saw the new disco and stuff like that, and then got into it that way, as opposed to having it in Transylvania.
It would have definitely broadened their horizons.
They could have showed them at Studio 54 doing blow and getting wild.
Yes. Sure.
Is anybody?
And then she goes on a rampage and murders a bunch of people. That would have been awesome. There were so many good things you could have did.
Is there anybody else that's as disappointed in me that Sherry Moon Zombie is like completely covered up for most of the movie?
Yeah!
One scene
I was
where
thinking-
she is like changing and she's got this cool looking punk rock outfit on underneath, and I'm just like, where is that at? Why are you dressed like
the skin tight
older
outfit
lady?
Yeah.
You're only 150 years old.
Yeah, it's a new 100.
Well, apparently, which is funny because she was trying to prove how. Okay, she was like, "Well, I'm a little too young for that, but I'm only 150, but 150 is the new 100." And I'm like, okay, that's like saying I'm only 20, but 20 is the new 15. In explaining how mature you are, it was ass backwards.
I just look at it
feel
like
like-
this: if you're 150, how come you're still a complete idiot? This is where the grandpa's smart as hell.
Yeah,
He's
that's
not
true.
150.
Yeah, he's like 300.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you know how smart I would be if I lived to 150?
Okay, but the times back then weren't as advanced as it is now. You learn
know.
more through the ages.
People were way smarter back then than you realize. Mathematics goes back pre-Greece.
Maybe he raised her like a princess and was just like, you got to
I
find
get
the right
the feeling
husband.
that she was sheltered very heavily, and that led to her.
Because
being
he was
who
trying to
she
find
was.
husbands for her.
Her dad was a man of science.
Okay, he was a man right there. This is still the 50s where women didn't really have.
No, he let his daughter, even in the show, his daughter got to kind of rule the roost to a degree.
Yeah, well, that was a little later on. You're hitting the 60s. She probably went to fucking Woodstock, okay?
Technically, the show took place in the 70s.
There you go. She'd already been there.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, but you know. Oh, go ahead, Reverend.
I'm just throwing it back, saying that I'm disappointed that
Yeah.
Sherry was covered up in these long dresses the entire movie, and it's just like, okay,
Yeah, well, she was looking at the skin tight outfit. I was like, cool, slap that on.
Exactly. And not only that, again, even as a mom, Lily was sexier in the show. Way sexier.
that is true. Yeah,
And she was
they
a
played
mom.
Sherry frumpier than the original one was.
And Sherry Moon Zombie she doesn't have an awful body. She's still a good looking woman.
Yeah, that one scene where she was like changing clothes, like I said, she had that like punk rock outfit on for like a split second. I was like, she still looks good for her age. Why is she covering up like constantly in all of this?
Because it's a family show. Movie. Family movie.
I don't. The very, very wasted potential there. But anyways,
I think they should. I think they should have aimed for a non-family movie.
I concur.
Yeah, I don't understand why. I
yeah,
don't
I
know.
think-
I don't know if he was making the movie to make the movie, or he's making the movie for an audience.
You know how there's movies that you can introduce your kids to for spooky fun, Hocus Pocus being one of them, Halloween Town, Nightmare
Not
Before...
two.
Not two. Halloween Town, A Nightmare Before Christmas. You got these movies. Do you think there's any parents that are like, oh, well, Robert Zombie made a film. My kids can watch this. Jonathan, do you want to watch The Munsters?
Oh, I like Rob Zombie. Let's watch some of his other movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, House of a Thousand Corpses. We'll start there.
Exactly. So I'm just saying, like, I think he's appealing to the wrong people. I don't think anybody is like, oh, let's see what this Robert Zombie is all about, you know?
Yeah, and the people that do follow him
Here-
were like, "What kind of garbage did you fucking make, dude?"
here's what I thought would have worked better than what he did. If he wanted to go the route of what he ended up doing with this movie would have been better served to be like a 3 or 4 episode, like, mini
Hell
series
yeah.
of some kind, limited
Oh, yeah.
series. And just, I mean, if you want to play it to the kids, whatever you want to do. But like, it would have been better to have done that. And that way they could have broke it up, because it like as a movie, the incoherence like kicks in because they're like cutting, like there's no real through storyline that just runs throughout the whole movie that's like worthwhile keeping up with, at least. Whereas if you did it more like a sitcom and then broke it up into different episodes, it would have better fit what he was trying to go for.
Oh yeah, it would have given more breathing room.
Yeah, he would have had time to do a little bit more instead of just fucking clumping everything together like clumping cat litter when a cat takes a shit or pisses in it.
This reminded me of cat shit.
Does cat shit look better if you put like neon green and neon pink like lights on it? Because
No,
that's
but
an
if you do put like kitty litter on it, it looks like an Omarosa. So it does look like a candy bar right until you eat it.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
That's the whole idea. Is you gotta trick the audience. Here's a candy bar. This tastes like cat shit. It is.
no, that's just the Munsters.
Oh.
Oh yeah, it was.
I don't know. I feel like I've discussed what I need to discuss with it. It's kind of it is what it is. It's out there, and it's not that great. But
It could have been way
who
worse.
expected anything from it.
Yeah.
And it's funny how I feel like we all have. I'm really curious to see what our reviews are. Do we have any? Is there any trivia or anything?
There is some trivia if you want me to go over it. I already said the first part of it, that he heightened the color scheme because he said that he wanted to be like a cartoon brought to life, whatever.
Okay.
The teaser trailer is a shot-by-shot remake of the Munsters 1964 title sequence. I think everybody knew that, where they're like busting through the doors, in the original teaser. That was actually better than the movie.
Yes.
That's what sucks.
It was very close to the baby he wanted to actually have.
It was, and it was black and white, and it would have worked. Here's the thing: if he would have done this in black and white, and then did what we talked about with the Innocents, where they used like lighting to create like contrast and stuff, it could have made for far more interesting visual shots than what he did with the colors in this movie.
Yeah, I did mention that to the hubby.
You know what? There's one instance where that would have been over the top amazing. The intro. Think about the intro where they go to the crypt, and it was if it would have been in black and white.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then they had like these long dark shadows in the corners, and they had, if you go back and you watch black and white movies that are like redone in like 4K, and they get like the sharpness there that we never saw before, like those movies are gorgeous. Like you don't realize like how much, because they had to rely on the lighting back in those days because they didn't have the color palette to work with. So
do you know where that would have worked really good too? Is on the date, when they were on the date. If you made the Nosferatu character an over the top like a killer, but not show the killers, and then have Lily get turned off by that.
Yeah,
I think that would have been.
You could have done something interesting with him in that scene too, whereas you had like this long, like forbidding, like shadow behind him or something, that almost like in the Dracula movie where it kind of moves on its own or something. You could have added something like that to it.
Yeah, there's just so many good things that could have happened.
This is Rob Zombie's first movie not to be rated R.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What is this? Was this PG-13? Is it G? I don't even know.
I don't think there's any cussing in it.
Yeah, there's not. I don't, or if there is, it's like a dad joke type cussing.
What is it, like
this is
PG?
the damn or something, like it's whatever.
Okay, hold on. I will look it up right now. Yeah, Reverend, you can continue.
Yeah, it's
since we're on the subject of the dad jokes, did they not get irritating after a while? Like, I mean, I could forgive a couple of them. I actually chuckled at a couple of them, and I'm like, come on, please stop.
See, I think the jokes were better left to the grandpa making the jokes.
Yeah.
Because the cynical jokes.
Was funny.
Yeah, because you know where he was coming from, an experience like all this moron. It's like the jokes land better because it's an experienced guy looking at the idiot making dumb decisions.
It's rated PG. PG for what?
Probably because how the rating board is. It's like they're monsters. That's scary. It's getting a PG rating. Well,
they're drinking blood.
Pat Priest, who played Marilyn Munster in The Munsters 1964, has a cameo role in the film. This marks the second time Priest has made a cameo in a new Munster incarnation, the first being 27 years ago, and Here Come the Munsters, and that was made in 1995.
Oh, my God.
What's the... Well, I never even heard about that movie.
The only thing I heard was that it was not that great. Like, I mean, they tried to reboot the series, but like it was in I want to say it was like late 80s, early 90s or something. It didn't come out that good. There was another show that was supposedly decent though that came out even more recently in like the 2000s, but like failed right off the bat, called 1313 Mockingbird Lane, and it was a darker take on the show, like just like you were talking about, you wanted to see.
Really? I never heard about it.
Mm-hmm. I only heard about it in researching about about this, because I was like, well, that sounds kind of interesting, actually.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I'm reading about it right now. I didn't know about it. I thought it had the original characters in it. It does not. Got a higher rating than this movie, so there's that.
Daniel Roebuck is a longtime fan of the Munsters and owns a Herman Munster doll that was signed by Fred Gwynne whenever they worked together on the film Disorganized Crime in 1989.
Wow.
He also met Al Lewis, who played the original Grandpa, through a friend. So he has very close connections, and that's why I think, did the best job in the film.
Yeah, he was a legit fan. But it's hard because there are people out there that will claim to be the best fan and cannot pull off the character.
What what's funny to me though is I've read so many like user reviews on like Facebook and some of these horror groups that I'm in, and like they've blasted Grandpa saying that it was a bad take, but then they praised Herman saying that the guy was great, and I'm just like, what were you smoking when you watched this?
Well, yeah, like that. The Herman execution was horrendous with the squeaky voice.
And they were praising it. They were like, he's dead on what Fred Gwynne would have been like. I'm like, no, he's not.
That squeaky voice was so annoying for the character. It should have been a deep voice played by like a kind of buffoonish guy.
Exactly. I mean, and I don't know, maybe that guy sounds like that, but I feel like he could have done a deeper voice and it would have been fine. Of course, Rob Zombie and Sherry Moon Zombie are huge fans of the Munsters. Zombie recorded it. Well, you wouldn't think it after seeing this.
Yeah.
Zombie recorded a commentary for the Blu-ray release of Munsters Go Home from 1966 and named one of his songs, obviously, after Dragula. So there you go. When Herman Munster, Jeff Daniel Phillips yells Car 54, where are you? It's a callback to Fred Gwynn's original show or TV show of the same name.
I remember that. I did not like that show.
No, it sucked. The first ever Munsters movie or show not to feature the character Eddie Munster. The character Bella is a nod to Bela Lugosi, who played a gypsy named Bella in The Wolfman in 1941. The film is a prequel to the TV series, which is obvious. Daniel Roebuck, Grandpa, the Count, starred alongside Fred Gwynne, the original Herman Munster and Disorganized Crime. I already said that. Jorge Garcia and Daniel Roebuck starred together in Lost, which I didn't know until I did this. And then On Location filming officially wrapped on July 7th, 2022. Which kind of feeds into what we were talking about when we said that, Rob Zombie, he kept showing all these pictures and stuff around that time, but he had already wrapped the production. So it's kind of like he was like building this false narrative that he was working on that when he was really on tour.
When he was on tour.
Yeah. But that's really it as far as like any kind of trivia that's out about it right now. I don't know. It is what it is, like we said. I'm going to go ahead with my rating just to get it over with. I've went back and forth. I thought about giving it a 1.5. I thought about a 2 and the 2 really came on the heels of Hocus Pocus 2 because you talk about a movie that disappointed the shit out of me. And then I watched this and I'm like, well, expectations were super low, but it didn't make me feel as bad as watching Hocus Pocus 2. But I settled on 1.8 just to kind of split the difference because it's a mess of a movie and I still think it would have been better as a limited series. But there were parts that I enjoyed. I did. Like I thought that the Count was good, and I thought that some of the the scenes that they worked in here and there, but just as a whole, it didn't work.
For reference, he gave Hocus Pocus a 2.7.
Wow.
I gave that a 2.7.
What the hell are you smoking?
You didn't watch it, so you can't even.
I don't have to.
I gave it a 2.7 purely out of like feeling like that I came into it. I mean, I was actually giving it some bonus points because I feel like I've got nostalgia for the first movie that I never can like let go of. And then also I was, coming into it hyped, even though I shouldn't have been. And that ruined the movie for me. And what I really wanted to give it, to be perfectly honest, was probably around a 2, but like I just like no, I need to split the difference here a little bit because I think I'm judging it a little bit more harshly than I would have.
How did Sarah Jessica Parker look in the movie?
Terrible. She looks like a man in drag.
She looked like it too.
There was we actually talked about it. You should listen to our episode.
She looked like a 2.
There was actually
like
drag queens in because there was a contest for the Sanderson sisters, costume contest, and there was actually drag queens, and they definitely looked better.
Rough.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go with my rating, and I didn't have a rating until now. I'm coming up with this rating. Found myself just slapping my head a lot and going, what the fuck? What the fuck? Like, I know it's supposed to be 50s, cheesy. It's just
70s. Disco.
true.
It's something. Yeah.
Before the 80s, we'll just throw that out there. I didn't like the light and fluffiness of Sherry Moon Zombie. I just thought it was too much. I know she's younger. I'm trying to have that, but it was hard to swallow, especially when Grandpa was so good. I'm going to give this one, Hocus Pocus was a 2.8 for me. I enjoyed Hocus Pocus more than I enjoyed this one.
Wow.
Honestly. I'm going to go with a 2.5.
Wow. I give it a 2.
Would you like to elaborate?
Nope. I did.
Would you watch it a second time?
Yes.
You watched it a second and you liked it the second time.
Yeah, you should have seen
that's what got it up to a 2.
That's what got it up to a 2. Yeah. I was down around 1 after the first time. I was like, this is horrendous. And I watched it again. I was like, okay, there's some redeeming qualities. I give it a 2.
Okay, he was genuinely enjoying this. Like, he's like, oh, this is not bad. This is not bad.
It's not bad. It's not good either. So there's
You know
that.
what's sad? I don't remember what I gave The Turning that we just recently covered on the Bly Manor episode, but this definitely was more enjoyable than The Turning. So I'll say that.
Oh,
Whatever rating
God.
I gave that, it has to be above that.
Yeah, because I think I want to say we were in the ones for The Turning.
That bad.
It's terrible.
When you know the story, you got to finish watching Bly Manor if you're going to do it with us. But when you know the story of Turning of the Screw, which is what Bly Manor is based on, and this is a story for what Turning of the Screw. How far back is that? Is that the 1800s?
1800s, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about a story that's way ahead of its time in terms of horror, gothic romance horror. Not even gothic romance, more like just gothic haunted horror. And then you see what this movie tried to do with it, and you're just like, yeah.
That bad.
What Rob Zombie did with this, but if we were comparing the two movies and we had to give them a score and likability, the Munsters would be a 4 for me.
Wow.
Yeah, if we're comparing the two, it would be the same range, about a 4 in comparison to The Turning. That movie
bad.
was shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's how bad they fucked up such an amazing story.
When was it made?
Turning of the Screw was
2020.
2020, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's just the Turning.
The same year that Bly Manor came out as a Netflix series and just blasted it out of the water.
What I don't understand is how do you sit down when you have a decent budget and no one's proofing what the story sounds like out loud? Like how is nobody walking through verbally what's going to happen and how coherent does it come off?
Here's something for you to ponder even more on that. They were both made by Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment, both that and then the TV show, Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Bly Manor. You tell me how the quality control can end up with one movie that is so shit and then this TV show that's rated up there amongst some of the highest that Netflix has ever done.
Yeah, there wasn't even enough. I mean, the Stranger Things kid was in it, Wolf Finhard, but even he was the best part of that movie, honestly.
He was the best part, and that's not saying anything. He barely acted in it.
Barely. So that film was basically carried by him. They were probably counting on his Stranger Things fame to help kind of carry that movie.
It did, right until everybody saw it, then they rated it.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a good actor, so there's not ever nothing he can do really is going to be bad, but the film itself was bad, which sucks.
Yeah, we discussed in the episode. You can clearly tell that the director didn't know how to direct because they took him, who's a pretty good actor, and it felt like he knew enough about what he needed to do with the character to get it up to what mediocre status it was, and then nobody else was actually going in behind and telling anybody else in the movie. It's like, you need to dial this down a little bit. You're being kind of a cunty bitch right now. None of that.
There was no hold back.
Bad?
Yeah. If we're gonna make comparisons to movies that we've reviewed, that movie was on fire, and Finn Wolfhard is the door that we removed to save.
Yeah, for no comparison, we got to pull that door out of that before it gets consumed with everything.
Exactly, he's not a part of that fire. Okay, if anything, he was holding it together. So, anyways, yes. Wait, where were we at again? I was at a 2.5. Reverend, you were at a what?
1.8.
1.8, and Noah's out of 2. So
I was a 1, then I watched it again. I'm like, I'll give this a 2.
so it has rewatchability, folks.
It does. It improves the
I
second
mean,
time
that's the
around.
reason I gave it. I was caught between like a 1.5 and a 2 because I was like, I would actually go back and rewatch this. I would never go back and rewatch Hocus Pocus 2 ever.
Which is funny because I told him, I was like, I'm on the fence. Like, I don't know that if Hocus Pocus was on and it rolled into Hocus Pocus 2, if I would stay and watch it. It's really.
And then I told her, I was like, I would turn it off, put on Ernest Scared Stupid, and watch that instead.
That's actually a pretty good.
Part of good.
I'm a huge Ernest fan, man. So like,
Oh, you too.
Ernest Scared Stupid is actually a pretty good movie.
It is a really good
For
movie.
a
to me.
goofy
I love it.
Halloween kids movie, that's hella good.
Do we have that for the kids to watch?
Yeah, but I gotta buy a
Yeah.
motherboard for our computer.
Another land. Anyways, all right. Well, we have anything else to say before we close this out?
Not about this dumpster fire, no. So you can enjoy this cat turd covered in multicolored glitter if you want.
Almond
but,
Roca.
I'm just gonna say we're pumping out the episodes right now. We have Hocus Pocus 2 out. Barbarian is coming up real soon.
That was a good movie.
And so then there's gonna be The Turning. And then we've got this. So stay tuned because we have The Fog coming out. We also have Sleepy Hollow. What
Oh,
else? Oh, and
dude.
Bly Manor.
I haven't seen The Fog in so long.
And it's the
You need
original.
to rewatch it and you need to be on that episode because I want to hear your thoughts on
Oh,
it for sure.
I watched that movie so many times as a kid. That was such a good horror movie.
This will be my first time watching it.
Oh, you might get scared because it's a really good tension building movie.
Yeah.
It still holds up. If nothing else, there are scenes in it where people get stabbed and their eyes ripped out with hooks, fish hooks.
Okay, cool. So it'll
they're-
keep me interested.
Yeah.
You'll get nervous because it's really good storytelling and tension building for a horror. It's the reason why it's held up so long.
Yeah, I've heard really good things. So this will be nice. It'll be a first for me. There's a lot of firsts for me on the show, so that's always cool.
Yeah, I remember that was a staple for Halloween time. I don't know if you guys ever had a station where you guys live that would play local.
We talked about this on the last
yeah.
time you were on.
Yeah, you guys didn't have one, huh?
Not where you could call in. He had one, but not one where it was live and you could call in.
I just remember when October came, they used to do movies every single night, and then on Saturdays instead of playing 1 or 2 movies, they'd play 3 movies on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It would be up to 2 a.m. watching horror movies on the local channels, and they're all the old ones.
Yeah,
old days.
Those are classics for a reason. So I mean, it would. But The Fog, I mean, I've been rewatching it for whenever we talk about it, and it still holds up. I mean, Carpenter knows, there's
Yes.
a reason he's a master of horror. I mean, he
Yes.
knows how to work the story.
Well, let's not give the show away. We'll save it for the people. You have to listen. I'm gonna
There's so
bleep out all
many
the words
John
you guys
Carpenter
say.
movies that are good too.
Yes, we'll get to those eventually.
Really.
We will.
And with that, peace be with you.
And with your spirit.